Okay, I see Craig, Dean, Jeff, Tim, John, and Brian. We have a full council and it is 7 o'clock. So I will call to order the February 2nd meeting of the City of Wabasha City Council, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, council members in attendance, do we have any guest speakers? We have time at the beginning of every meeting to hear from members of the public. Don't need to be on the agenda or let us know that you have a comment. Just take yourself off of mute and let us know your place of residence for the record, and then go ahead and share your thoughts with council. And if you're new to Zoom, your mute button kind of disappears. As you see the faces in front of you, go down to the lower left. And if you hover there, you should see a little microphone appear, and that's where you can mute or unmute yourself. I'm not hearing any comment, although I see another participant connecting via audio. We'll just give it a second here. If you're a member of the public listening or watching and you want to make a public comment, we're at that part in the agenda. Just unmute yourself and go ahead and state your name and place of residence for the record, and you can speak to council. Okay, I'm not hearing any comment. If you're having trouble making a comment, there's also a chat bar down right in the middle of the lower bar on the Zoom format. You can chat there and our host will be able to see it. All right, any changes or additions to the agenda? Tyler, I'm really sorry. I know you sent me a CGMC resolution that we could consider, and I just didn't have time to look it over and respond here before today's meeting. But when we have the administrator's report, I might just call on you, Tyler, just to foreshadow that will probably be coming. Any other changes or additions to the agenda at this time? Okay. All right, hearing none. February is a rough month. I guess maybe it's COVID, but I had a hard time coming up with a mayor's message in February of last year too. February is kind of it's a time of patience, I think, because we know there's quite a bit of winter ahead of us. But the good news is January was pretty calm and we didn't have any below 0 days. I heard a news feature that talked about the 3 times, I think, that there's been a no below 0 day in January, and they're all within the last 30 years, I guess 1990, 2006, and this year. So I guess that's good news. There's also other good news that I think feels somehow like it's happening slowly, but the reality is the vaccine is getting out there. I think we updated last time that our EMS folks were getting access. I think that some of them, or maybe all of you guys who are in EMS and fire have gotten your 2nd dose. Is that right?
Most of us, yeah.
Okay, good. So that's really good news. You know, I know for those who are not in one of these priority categories, it probably feels like it's going to be forever, but I was being asked to comment about that with regards to food shelf volunteers, because they had such a fall off of their volunteer base when COVID hit, because a lot of people are at risk just based on age or possibly other conditions. And, you know, I look into it again, because the state's news really changes every day a little bit. I think the target, you know, with these lottery-based large vaccination sites across the state is kind of, they're shifting. It sounds like shifting energy toward care delivery systems. And then sure enough, before I went to bed last night, I saw Gunderson St. Elizabeth's had posted to their Facebook that they are sort of doing a similar lottery-based appointment scenario for those 75 and up. So for everybody who's out there waiting for a vaccine, it's a long time waiting, but it does seem, I really have my ear pressed to all the media channels, and it seems like they're doing everything they can to accommodate the shortage of the actual supply right now and really trying to get it out there. I know our county was, you know, as on top of it as they could be. And I think it sounded like things were going pretty smoothly. And I hope that's true for Gunderson, St. Elizabeth too. So, you know, keep your ears peeled to all the media channels. They're all covering it. But certainly if you're not usually looking at Facebook, now might be a good time to follow our health systems because they're keeping very current. But yeah, I had a nice chat with a friend who's retired and working through some poetry in a workshop, and it sounded really great. We exchanged poetry a lot. When I looked at poetry for February, I came up with things like February is a good time for dying. And I thought, nope, we're not gonna look at poetry in February. We'll wait until a spring year month. But the other good news is that our Grumpy Old Men Festival has been re-envisioned by the Chamber. They've got activities posted to their website. If you haven't noticed that, they're gonna do a variation on the plunge so they can still have a philanthropic effort for Great River Homes. So there to look at the Chamber news. If you don't get it in your inbox, you can find them on Facebook and their regular webpage. I don't think I have anything else that's really pressing, but I just am appreciative that some of those things are happening. I know a lot of effort goes into planning them in regular time, so reinventing that kind of stuff in a very unusual year is challenging, I'm sure. So thanks to Rotary.
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Go ahead, Craig.
Could you give us an update on the city administrator?
I will. Yeah, sure. Yep. So what we announced last time is still true, except one change as of today. The process hasn't been changed. The personnel committee convened before our last council meeting to decide, or after our last council meeting, to decide whether we're going to vary on the process, and we are not. We're going to have the same interview panel, which again is personnel committee, Jeff Sulla, Wendy Bush, myself, and Brian Woodley. Added to that from council or from commissions is Jane Glander from the Police Commission, and help me, I'm blanking, Con Walters, of course, from the Port Authority. So the same group will be interviewing what we had ranked as our next 3 candidates. And again, just so that it's clear to everybody on council, our candidates who are all qualifying for the interview, they did have different experiences. So we've limited to the next interview set, the group that had the supervisory and kind of budgetary project level administration experience that we felt was more equivalent to one another. There were 3 candidates, and as of today, there are 2. We had 1 candidate who has pursued other options. So we'll be interviewing those 2 candidates tomorrow afternoon. Starting at 1 still, Wendy, or was that the first? Okay, starting at 1. So we'll be done by early afternoon, and we'll either have a formal decision or decide that we need some further consultation with one another. But those interviews will be finished by tomorrow. It just wasn't possible to have them scheduled before tonight's meeting, unfortunately. And then we'll have that same process of working with the attorney to actually figure out, well, we'll work with the police force, of course, the law enforcement will conduct the background check as we start to develop an offer. This candidate, you know, may have different salary requirements or experience than we saw prior. So we'll take a look at that and start to develop that offer as the background check is being conducted. Once we have a clear background check, we will have the attorney facilitate an offer letter. That's their recommendation, is that we don't bring somebody to the table who isn't actually willing to accept the basic terms of the offer. And so we'll be bringing that to council at our earliest opportunity, but there's for sure a needed week for the background check and a business week, and then whatever time it takes to respond, you know, for that potential candidate to respond. So if I could predict what will happen, it would either be a special city council meeting, you know, mid February, or even that 3rd week of February, or if it's just close enough, we may just have it be a part of our regular March city council meeting. Just a little bit, the timing is a little bit out of our hands, but I think it'll go pretty quickly. I would think if somebody's made an offer, they're not going to hang on their decision too long. So any questions about that? Or anything I missed from the personnel? All right. That's my report. Any committee reports or any council members want to make a comment or have any good news to share?
Go ahead, Craig. I'll go after you.
Okay, I was just gonna bring up today, we had a meeting with the Corps We had the mayor was there, the city engineer was there. One of our attorneys, Daniel Marks, was there, and Tyler was there as well. And we also had 4 people from the Corps. So just trying to get an understanding of where we're at, and they're planning to come out with the new draft dredge materials management plan in July, they said. Of course, that's been known to get put off, but that's their current date. But they did set up bi-weekly meetings with the city and the Corps. So we expect to see some headway being made with regular meetings. Anything else, Emily?
No, thank you for thinking of that. I felt like almost like just a restart, because we haven't had they haven't had anything for us to respond to in such a long time. I almost forgot about it because we're just kind of restarting this process of dialoguing with them. But yeah, we should have, I don't know whether those bi-weekly meetings will always occur, but we decided, Craig and Brian Malm and I all advocated for bi-weekly, just to have that time held. And if they have to get canceled because there's no progress, fine, but at least we have that touch point planned every 2 weeks. So that'll be good. Brian, you were going to say something?
Yeah, just normal utilities report. We met yesterday, business as usual. One thing we did discuss at length was a service that we do each year is the jetting of our sewers. And our jetting equipment is getting long in the tooth. So we're actively pursuing replacing the jetter, which is right now it's hauled around on a trailer. And to do the actual process of I won't get super into the mechanics of it, but the jetting truck that we're looking at essentially is going to do the work of 4 different pieces of equipment that we have doing it right now. And what's important about the jetting is that we have insurance through the league. If our sewer system causes any sort of damage to a resident, if we back up into their basement and cause thousands and thousands of dollars, we're insured for that. And what the league requires is that you prove that you have jetted at least 25% of all your sewer infrastructure per year. So this is a yearly thing that we have to do to maintain our insurance requirements. So it's not something that's going to go away soon. In addition to the truck, we're also looking at a new camera system. Our old camera system no longer exists. It just went away due to age. And so we're also looking at a camera, which is way more sophisticated. We got a demo video of it. So we kind of took a tour down a sewer. It was almost like a virtual roller coaster video that you see on the internet, but it's down a sewer pipe with gray water, which isn't as fun. But the camera can rotate. You can view services. You can view what services are capped. You can zoom right in on them. So it's a pretty sweet deal. So we're just pursuing that. Staff's doing all the diligence, and we'll hopefully get that going soon. That's it for me.
Thank you. Tony, I've got you on the top of the grid today. You want to speak for parks and streets?
Yes, we did not have a street commission meeting today. It's been pretty quiet, so we're not taking the risk of gathering anybody together unless something comes up. Parks is going to be the same way yet this month. We are working on gathering some information for the next park plan, the next park to select to complete the park plan. So in March, I'm looking at getting a gathering together for the park board for that. You'll see some bills next month for road salt. I had to order some road salt here over the last month. So that came in basically Friday and then today. So I just want to remind everybody, if they can sign up for Code Red, it's the best notification that they can get. Not this last storm, but the storm before, we had quite a few cars that got tickets. And I'm not for sure on the number, but just off the top of my head, I think it was 15 or 20 cars. And so, you know, we had little over about 3.5 inches. So that's something to keep an eye out. I usually try to send out that notice. I'm sure some of you or all of you maybe receive it about 6 o'clock at night, 6:30. So trying to get people at supper time whenever most people are together around to try and get them to move their cars. So we're just going to keep pumping that advertisement to get signed up. It's free. Takes about 10 minutes. Other than that, yeah, we're just picking away at a lot of jobs that have been on the board for 5-10 years, actually getting the stuff that's got cobwebs on it. So we're getting a lot of jobs cleaned up in between snow here. And we've had a couple glitches with our 2001 plow truck. So I'm trying to get it limped through until spring. We got to pull some circuit boards out of it, and we got a slim to none chance of getting something rebuilt. So we're trying to limp it through. It's going to take several weeks for them to even look at it. And so I can't really take a truck down in the middle of winter here. So other than that, everything's pretty quiet.
And you're looking for a park commissioner?
I think we have that filled with
Okay,
Darren.
good. All right, good. Then we'll put that on our March agenda for approval. Thank you. I didn't know if you were still looking. I know everybody's really busy, so that's good because it'll be nice to have a full commission as you guys finish out the park plan.
Is it not on the consent agenda tonight or anything?
Did I miss it?
Well, maybe I did, but we talked about putting it on there.
It's not on there.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We'll add it, but it'll be in time for your March meeting.
Yep.
So that'll be fine. Okay. But maybe Jess or Wendy will just make a note that we add that. I'll just give also Tony some credit, and Craig and I have participated as well. This is a little advertisement too. There is a led by our statewide health improvement partnership, which is a coordinator. She's a county employee. Her name is Tina Moen. There is a group called the Wabasha Bike Walk Advocates. They've gotten a lot of good press because of things that have been done in the past. And they're responsible as a partner for us having our public bikes. And some of the mapping that's been done has received SHIP funds. And Tony and I participate primarily. I wish I could say I was a big bike walk zealot, but I'm actually not. I'm kind of a Luddite, and I not into like all the technology that's available to, prompt people to think about public bikes and things like that. So that even that kind of technology is new to me, but it's a very good thing. But I do want to stand in as a representative because it's a broader issue related to what I would call active transit planning. And so, thinking about how do people get around if they don't have a vehicle, that is important to me, or how do people get around if they just don't want to ride in a car. And so some of the topics that have come up related to bikeability and walkability is, of course, how do kids get to and from school safely? And there's a federal program called Safe Routes to Schools. So Craig and Tony and I have participated in these conversations about the merits of that particular process and looking at safety implementation so that at the very least you can, assure a kid who doesn't have a vehicle that they can get to and from school. And that's not easy in a community like Wabasha because we have a school in the middle of the country, and that's just the nature of it. We're not the only ones in that boat. But that group is ongoing, and I would say it's a very good group. I would make a plea to anyone who thinks they would have a contact beyond the city of Wabasha, that we could really use some partners outside of the city proper. Because if we're talking about trails or anything beyond kind of streets projects, then they're not at the level of the city. They're really bigger than that. So I might pick Jess's brain about, who she knows in Kellogg, who kind of helps get things done for the betterment of our communities. And but just think about that, because those issues related to trails and as it relates not only to our own well-being and our own kind of quality of life, but also as an economic development driver. If we can create trails in the city of Wabasha and they're 1 and 2 and 3 miles, that's really great. But beyond that, we've really got to be working with a bigger kind of contingent of people. So even though, Tony and I maybe aren't like huge bike, knowledgeable, we're not knowledge banks as it relates to biking and walking. We're committed to going to those meetings. Craig's very knowledgeable and, participated long before us. But I think it'd be good to get other partners involved just so we can speak about more than just the city's interest, because I think where there's, as an example, you know, if we're going to improve walkability and bikeability only for our own kids who live in the city of Wabasha, it doesn't feel very equitable in terms of thinking about how do, you know, how do our kids actually experience community? If they can bike to their friend's house, I think the odds are they're going to benefit more than if they just have one path that's safe. So I was happy to learn today, because we had a kind of a pre-meeting that we do have in our comp. Is it in the comp plan? Where was that document that you found, Wendy? Okay, in our comprehensive plan, there is both a sidewalk plan and there is a trails plan. And I think Brian Malm thinks it's pretty easy to put them together using GIS so that we can show true connections. But he said something that I think is really good for us to think about as council, and that is, you know, you never want to be making decisions about sidewalks on a project level, because it's always going to feel like there's a budget squeeze, but we really want to have a policy around that so that we can think about more broadly, how do citizens benefit and how do we make these connections happen? Because at the level of a project, it's just always too easy to say, well, maybe we can scrap the sidewalks there, when there's been comprehensive plan input by citizens that, you know, that's not what they want. They want connectivity. Obviously, some people find this, the sidewalks to be a burden in terms of maintenance, but in terms of the well-being of the general population, you know, our planning tools are good for us to reference. So that was good. I appreciate being brought into that meeting today, Tony. Now I'm just going through the grid. Darren, do you want to give us an update from fire? You guys have been plenty busy.
I'll get off here. All right. I'll just buzz through a few quick things here. I guess I don't know if it's in any kind of particular order or not, but yeah, we've been busy. I mean, I'm just going to run through our runs from last year, where we averaged about 135 runs. Our average is about 87. So our run volume for last year was way up. With that being said, we did a little search and rescue on Thursday night, and I want to give these guys credit that they went out at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and they tracked a person that had walked away from the west side the 24 hours before that. And in the process, they walked down past Riverview Cemetery, hiked up over the bluff, ended up into an abandoned camper, and found the character that had walked away a couple hours later. After taking him to the hospital and flying him out, or if they went to pursued the foot walk and everything up over the bluff and that, this person wouldn't have been alive the next morning. So these guys did a hell of a job on Thursday night. So just one thing that had happened recently that was a good thing, I guess. The outcome for this character might not be real good, but at least he'll be alive and be able to go from there. So I was in contact with Emily that night that search took place. I try to keep her informed, just in case the public's wondering why trucks are running all over this area, or why we're setting up a grid or an incident command or something along that line. But anyway, that was a good deal. Along with that, our gambling, we submitted a check to the city just a couple weeks ago for $9,000, which was just the money left over from our gambling that we have to donate back to the city. So we can use that for future purchases. And so I gave that check to the city. Received a check for $10,000, a grant to upgrade our washer and dryer system down at the fire station. This gives us entitles us to wash 4 sets of turnout gear to crack and dry them at the same pace. So from the one washing machine we got that does 1 pair to 4 pair, and it was just about 100% covered on the grant. So we received that. I did apply for an $89,000 grant to increase our air capacity down at the fire station for filling bottles, and the compressor we got is about 23 years old, and it's definitely up for replacement, but we've been passing inspections with it, and so I thought I would throw that out on that fire grant for this year, and you never know. So I guess that's pretty much all I got for the fire department part of it.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, I appreciate you keeping me in touch, and glad everybody's safe after Thursday night. Tim, planning department. I know we've got an agenda item. Anything else related to planning?
Not much on our January 12th. We just had election of officers. So chair, myself, vice chair, Sarah Carls, and then we had board of adjustments. the chair on that, Scott Durand, and Vice Chair Sharon Burke. Otherwise, no other business for that day.
And John, Port Authority.
Port Authority did meet. Just a couple of big items. The first one was we had some discussion with respect to our portion of the riverfront project, which is the riverfront and the dock area and the new dock or new development in the dock, as well as Big Joe Alley, and kind of how we're going to, the city, Port Authority is going to look at participating in that development down there. We want to try to rethink it a little bit. Maybe we don't need to spend as much money as we thought we might have to on the docks, and maybe be able to apply that money to further enhancement of the riverfront, or apply it to that green space. So more to come on that. This is all stems from the fact that the Eagle Center and the city are kind of gearing up quite a bit, kind of developed a project management team. And so the project on the riverfront and the Eagle Center is still moving forward at kind of a nice pace. It's nice to see, even though we've been in a kind of a pandemic mode here for the last year. So that's nice. That was good discussion there. And then the next thing we talked about that is a kind of big importance is on a monthly basis, the Port Authority returns payment or pays the city for support staff. And that comes to about $1,250 every month. We haven't had any support staff, save for Tyler helping us with keeping the books, but no real EDA staff at all. And so the Port Authority, the members of the Port Authority had a discussion, and at this point, we didn't pay the city for that staff support because we didn't have any support. And we're looking at trying to be responsible for the money that we get, which is a levied tax, or taxes that have been levied from our constituents here. So, and as we progress forward, we'll look at either working with the new city administrator or developing some kind of a strategy for having some sort of support staff that we can actually pay for. So that's kind of where that's at. Those are the two big items.
Yeah, related to the riverfront revitalization project, without absent an administrator, I don't want us to completely lose touch with some of the red tape associated with that, because with a bonding project, you can bet there's plenty of red tape. So there was a good meeting with the management and budget, state management and budget office, and a project manager who will actually develop the actual grant agreements. So I think some of this language seems a little tedious, but I think that the language is important. So the allocation has occurred in the bonding, the money is allocated, but the way in which it will be distributed to us is subject to a grant agreement. And so there was some discussion about the way in which the project is envisioned as phased at this point, and the legislative language that was added to the bonding language, which is now approved, does approve that phased project, and some kind of high level discussion about the ins and outs of what does that mean? Does that mean there's one grant agreement or multiple grant agreements? And so I'm just kind of foreshadowing that a little bit so that when it comes to council, and we'll have some working understanding of this, the bonding allocation occurs, but in order for the actual money to flow, we have to be compliant with a grant agreement or possibly multiple grant agreements. And there's quite a bit of, state level requirements there to be tended to. So our new administrator will have to get on the learning curve real quick, because it poses a conflict of interest for a member of council to really represent the city in those discussions. We have to vote on it. So I can't in any way, sort of help make that process move along, but I didn't want to be not at the table. I wanted to kind of hear some of that just to have an understanding of where the project is at in this phase now, where we're looking at what does the bonding process require. So I mostly just listened in, and we'll do so until we have an administrator in place. But it's a process which they're going to facilitate with us. Obviously, they serve bonded. This is how bonding projects work. But it will definitely involve needed counsel. Our attorneys will at some point need to get involved, probably sooner rather than later. And I've had some conversation with Mike about that, just getting back to the nature of the contracting and that kind of thing, because the city's obligation as the actual recipient of the bond is going to need some scrutiny. So that's just kind of related to that. And I was pleased to see the output of some of what you're talking about, John, with project management involvement. I know Dave Woodley was involved in kind of putting some actual ideas out there about the dockage and how that might get reconfigured just so that to be a good steward of the funds. I think the original concept of, you know, a huge dock with a seawall that was going to accommodate large vessels like the, you know, Viking cruise lines. I think that's been scaled back to an understanding that, yes, it will definitely facilitate large boats, probably large like the Pearl, you know, not necessarily large for like a Viking cruise ship, because they have not indicated that they would utilize such a structure. And so we're looking at the actual utilization of it by, you know, larger pleasure craft as well as small pleasure craft and larger boats. It sounded like Dave was able to make some headway on consulting with other cities that have similar structures, and it looked like they were making progress. Again, I was just kind of fly on the wall today in that Soaring Higher campaign conversation or development conversation. So yeah, it's good. I think it felt like nothing was happening, but again, we have to remember that, as you recall, the bonding really kind of held things up. They really couldn't move forward without the project could not move forward without an understanding of whether this phased adoption was amenable, if the state was amenable to that. And that took up until November. So now it's kind of like all this pent up energy to sort of see that realized. So I will encourage, and I don't know at what time point it's relevant, probably wouldn't hurt right away when you have a new administrator, for again, another kind of regroup on the project, because there is so much detail for everybody to keep on in their mind. And there's been real development too since the last time that the Eagle Center kind of brought forth drawings, because those were pre-designed documents. So
Mayor,
sure we'll have more. Yes.
John, this is really for both of you. You know, I know we're having a lot of activity with this, but do we still need to revert back to or discuss a updated development agreement between the Eagle Center and city? I don't want to get too far into the process without really addressing that.
Yeah,
so
we do.
I just want to
that's one of the things. Yeah, that's one of the things that Mike feels, you know, should be revisited again.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think once we get kind of a strategy about how this phasing is going to work, will help us with that development agreement. So some of this is still kind of preliminary before we get to that. Definitely has to be a part of this whole project, and very soon.
I should be clear, it's not a requirement of the bonding process, but yes, that Mike's feeling is that it wouldn't be premature at this point to start remembering that we can think about that and look at when that update should occur. You might remember Randy Eggenberger presented, and their understanding was they were past the point at which the development agreement was to be serviced, whatever, but it also stipulates that if the funds weren't there, you know, essentially that the agreement's not in, the agreement doesn't hold. So as you know, along with the process of the, you know, the development of the actual scope of the project how do I say that? Kind of being reconsidered, that has realigned the campaign process in terms of the Eagle Center's commitment to raise funds to the degree necessary to release the bonding money. So, but yeah, it's a big project, and it'll take many iterative conversations for us to all have our heads around it appropriately. So, all right. And then I saw Ed there. Now I hope I'm not calling on him when he's like trying to let his dog out or something. Ed, are you there to give us an ambulance update?
I can unmute myself here. We didn't have any commission meeting this month. We're shooting for like the 25th of this February. We're having a hard time getting together with everybody's schedules and different things. We roughly did about 500 calls last year at the ambulance, which is kind of about par for the course. We picked the pace up at the end of the year. We were pretty slow at the beginning, but for the most part, we got our new ambulance back together. It's running great. We got all of our cots installed that we got from the CARES Act. Just got back today. That was our final step with all the extra things that we got from the CARES Act. Other than that, staff is keeping pretty busy. Schedule's filled up pretty well. The weekends are doing okay. They could be a little bit better, but they're getting taken care of. Other than that, that's about all I have. Any
That's
questions?
Any questions for Ed? And I will say, I don't mean to eliminate Joe from these updates. I know he's in City Hall, but Joe, if you ever wanted to pop in with a report for us, feel free. I know it's awkward when you guys are socially distanced, but if you wanted to give us any updates, that's always welcome too. He's looking at Wendy like, no. All right, I'm not forgetting you. Tony, did you have something?
I had two things that I forgot about. When you're talking about dockage, our docks did come in for Ike's Park, and they were down there stacked up, kind of ready for the right time when we get closer to spring to get those out on the ice and get those set. And then also, my guys have been replacing some signage, some street signage, and you'll notice that some are white and some are yellow. The yellow is for truck route and the white is regular residential traffic. And I do have signs that illustrate that we'll put on the main entrances coming into town. And I will run an ad in the paper and Facebook and all that too. So I just wanted to let you guys know ahead of time.
And is that commonplace to use that color difference? Okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, they look nice. Thanks. All right, any other announcements? So we'll move into our consent agenda.
I'll just mention that ADVO is doing our 2020 audit this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we're working with them over Zoom and email to answer all their requests. So that's going well.
Good.
And then you mentioned also, we didn't get it on the agenda tonight, but the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities is doing some advocacy work for local government aid. So as part of that, they are recommending city councils pass resolutions just showing support for local government aid, because as you know, that's a big part of our budget. And they did include sample resolutions as well. So maybe on the March meeting, we'll try to get that on there just to send to our lawmakers to show our support for local government aid.
Yeah. And Tyler, maybe you'll circulate that piece. They solicited an interview for me and other mayors as well as other city administrators, and I'm trying to think other city council members. So CGMC put together a little video they already used. I think they already had a legislative advocacy day or maybe even week. And so now they're asking all of us to follow up from our actual representative councils. And I would guess there would be a support for that, but we can always put the resolution together and see what the discussion looks like. All right. All right, and any other administrator reports? I think, Wendy, you had tipped us off. There might not be fire contracts, but now I see them. Anything else from City Hall?
So one comment on the, okay. Am I good?
You're
Okay.
good.
One comment on the fire contract. So typically we get information from the county in regards to what the fire district market values are. And we haven't gotten that information from the county yet. I believe somebody was out ill the end of last week, so they haven't been able to provide it for us. So we don't have the contracts ready to go. We did provide the 2020 Pepin Township contract in there. The language within the contract isn't going to change except for a signature at the bottom, which will go from Sue to myself. And then we will insert the appropriate numbers, which we've provided in how we figure out the percentages and what gets figured in for their amounts. So I think what we're looking for is the approval to move forward with it so that we don't hold it up. These need to be provided, I believe, to the state by the end of March, beginning of April. Township approval has to happen by March. Township Tuesday, which is in March.
And so would our March meeting not be sufficient? You'd like that before then?
Township Tuesday is the same day as our meeting, and they'll have to have them for approval at that to set their budgets for the township, is my understanding.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants that out of the consent agenda for discussion, we sure can do that. Otherwise, anything further, or we will work through the consent agenda.
Can we pull 10?
10 is Grumpy Old Men Days temporary liquor license. We'll pull that, move that to general business 10-2. Any other items people would like to discuss? Okay, so yep, anybody else? Right, I'm volleying back and forth between Zoom and the agenda. We have on our consent agenda the special council minutes from both December 22nd and December 31st, as well as our January 5th regular council minutes. We have the warrants for February. We have the 2021-22 fire contracts that, as Wendy just described. We have the 2021 fee schedule. We have a rewording of the motion. It looks like the state required a rewording, slight modification of the wording on the motion for the West Side Tavern to have fire relief pull tabs there. And we have Falcon Youth Baseball Association gambling permit. We have the 2012 loader tires, which staff has provided a good report on, and we're going to eliminate item 10, move that to regular business. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move.
Second.
We have a motion from Tim. We have a second from John. Any further discussion? And we'll vote by roll.
Ulrich,
Yep.
Moyer,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Falcon,
Yes.
Solo,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Durand.
Yes. All right, now, and there's no public hearing. No, we have a second reading for our zoning ordinance, but no hearing. So item 10.1 under general business, we have a second reading for the zoning ordinance amendment. As you recall, we've had a solar subcommittee of the Planning Commission looking at proposed changes to the solar ordinance, which follows what was a moratorium on solar development. That moratorium was approved in last April for a maximum of 6 months. So now there's been some meetings of the subcommittee and now additional 3 meetings of the Planning Commission. So they have adopted code change, and we have a staff summary report, which comes from our planner, who's, if you haven't met, is Harry Davis. So we have the opportunity to have a motion approving the amendments to the code related to solar structures and solar gardens and farms. So we certainly, Tim can inform us or Jeff can about the discussion from planning, but if we have a motion in a second. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion from Jeff. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a tie for, I think I heard John first. We'll say Friedmeier for the second. And then do we have any further discussion, or is there anything Tim or Jeff you wanted to share regarding this item?
No, I think this is the second reading, and really a lot of the changes we had, we would incorporate into a lot of the conditional use permit stuff. So we just kind of made it a standard so we don't have to keep adding it in. So otherwise, pretty much straightforward.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second, and we can take a roll vote.
Woodley,
Yes.
Falcon,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Solo,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Durand.
Yes. Thanks to that subcommittee and the Planning Commission for that work. All right, so move to general business 10.2. We have what was in the consent agenda, item 10, Grumpy Old Men Days temporary liquor license. So the Anderson House is looking for a temporary liquor license to sell liquor during the spaghetti feed, which is held during Grumpy Old Men Days. And so that's what we have on the agenda. Anything further that we should understand about this, Wendy or John? Did you have any particular questions?
Well, if I may, I don't have an issue at all with issuing a temporary liquor license. I think it's more procedural in that I would like to see the applications going forward complete so we can review them as a council. It's our responsibility, and I don't want to, I know that the state has to approve them. I get that. And but we put the responsibility back on staff, where really this is our responsibility to approve this temporary license. And everybody knows, all our businesses know that it's got to be in a certain time to get it done. And I get that. This one I don't have an issue with supporting or approving, but I think going forward, if we can just kind of establish that practice, it'd be probably more appropriate.
Yep, agreed. Anything further? It's a straightforward process, so I think we can hold people to it. I know they push the limits. It's the nature of anything, any kind of paperwork. I think it feels like having something in advance seems somehow like it's not easy to do, but it's a straightforward form, and it's for anybody who's ever involved in activities that need liquor license. Have it on hand. Call for questions. All right, we have that as a separate item. Do we have a motion to approve it?
I'll move.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Tim, second from Jeff. Any further discussion on that item? We'll vote by roll.
Falcom, Falcom,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Sella,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Duran.
Yes. All right, and then we have the donations, and I love reading the donations, and for some reason we get to the end of the meeting, they fail to load, so I loaded them separately this month. So we have before us, the city of Wabasha is generally authorized to accept donations of real and personal property pursuant to the statute for the benefit of its citizens. So whereas the following persons and entities have offered to contribute the cash amounts or items set forth below to the city for the following: to the library, $100 from Craig and Nancy Fulcom, another $100 anonymous, $50 John and Agatha Hubbard, $720 in memory of Jim Abbott from the following donors: Paul and Julie Burkhart, Robert and Kathy Abbott, William and Julie Scheitz, Gail and Dennis Schneider, Norman Kathy Bashan, Richard and Diane Doty, Julie and Ray Anderson, Dean and Julie Plank, Terry and Kathy Arns, Wiley and Rob Jordan, Tara and Matt Whitehead, and Mitch Arns. And to the ambulance, $25 from Doris Baker. So with that, therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Wabasha, Minnesota as follows: these donations are acknowledged and accepted and shall be used in accordance with the terms prescribed by the donor. Do we have a motion to approve the donations?
So moved.
I heard Dean first, and then I heard an echo.
I can be the second.
All right, second by Brian. And we'll have any further discussion, otherwise we'll have a roll vote.
Moyer,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Sella,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Falcom,
Yes.
Duran.
Yes. Any further announcements, or we'll entertain a motion to adjourn? I will say one thing. Thank you very much to city staff for getting that skating rink in shape. The kids have been out there a lot. It's been really fun to drive by. Sometimes I drive by that beautiful rink and I think, why aren't our kids skating? Well, they don't have as many choices this year. So I'm really glad to see that. It's been fun. I know they're enjoying it, and I know that it's kind of a maintenance issue. So thank you for that, especially in a warm January. Otherwise, any further announcements, or we'll entertain a motion to adjourn?
Also move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Tim and a second from John, and we'll take a roll vote.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Falcom,
Yes.
Sella,
Yes.
Duran.
Yes. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good
Have a good
everyone.
evening. Good night.
Night now.